नमो भगवते ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयते। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवतसेवया भगवते उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। Hare Krishna. So I'll just share my screen. Since we have around 26 verses, we can have three people. We can do 10, 10, 6, if that's okay. Y'all can see my screen, no?
Yes.
Okay, Hari bol. Um, yeah, so would anyone like to start reading? Okay, Nupur, please. Thank you.
Jaḍa, who had fully realized Brahman, continued. My dear King Rahūgaṇa, the living entity wanders on the path of the material world, which is very difficult for him to traverse, and he accepts repeated birth and death. Being captivated by the material world under the influence of the three modes of material nature, Satogun, Rajogun, and Tamogun, the living entity can see only the three fruits of activities under the spell of material nature. These fruits are auspicious, inauspicious, and mixed. He thus becomes attached to religion, economic development, sense gratification, and the monastic theory of liberation, merging with the supreme. He works very hard day and night, exactly like a merchant who enters a forest to acquire some articles to sell later for profit. However, he cannot really achieve happiness within this material world. O King Rahugana, in this world, in this forest of material existence, there are six very powerful plunderers. When the conditioned soul enters the forest to acquire some material gain, the six plunderers misguide him. Thus, the conditioned merchant does not know how to spend his money, and it is taken away by these plunderers. Like tigers, jackals, and other ferocious animals in a forest that are ready to take away a lamb from the custody of its protector, the wife and children enter the heart of the merchant and plunder him in so many ways. In this forest, there are dense bowers composed of thickets of bushes, grass, and creepers. In these bowers, the conditioned soul is always disturbed by cruelly biting mosquitoes, envious people. Sometimes he sees an imaginary palace in the forest, and sometimes he is bewildered by seeing a fleeting being or ghost, which appears like a meteor in the sky. My dear king, the merchant on the forest path of the material world, his intelligence, victimized by home, wealth, relatives, and so forth, runs from one place to another in search of success. Sometimes his eyes are covered by the dust of a whirlwind. That is to say, in his lust, he is captivated by the beauty of his wife, especially during her menstrual period. Thus, his eyes are blinded, and he cannot see where to go or what he is doing. Wandering in the forest of the material world, the conditioned soul sometimes hears an invisible cricket making harsh sounds, and his ears become very much aggrieved. Sometimes his heart is pained by the sounds of owls, which are just like the harsh words of his enemies. Sometimes he takes shelter of a tree that has no fruits or flowers. He approaches such a tree due to his strong appetite, and thus he suffers. He would like to acquire water, but he is simply illusioned by a mirage and he runs after it. Sometimes the conditioned soul jumps into a shallow river, or being short of food grains, he goes to beg food from people who are not at all charitable. Sometimes he suffers from the burning heat of household life, which is like a forest fire. And sometimes he becomes sad to have his wealth, which is as dear as life, plundered by kings in the name of heavy income taxes. Sometimes being defeated or plundered by a superior, powerful agent, a living entity loses all his possessions. He then becomes very morose and lamenting their loss, he sometimes becomes unconscious. Sometimes he imagines a great palatial city in which he desires to live happily with his family members and riches. He thinks himself fully satisfied if this is possible, but such so called happiness continues only for a moment. Sometimes the merchant in the forest wants to climb the hills and mountains, but due to insufficient footwear, his feet are pricked by small stone fragments and by thorns on the mountain. Being pricked by them, he becomes very much aggrieved. Sometimes a person who is very attached to his family becomes overwhelmed with hunger, and due to his miserable condition, he becomes furious with his family members. The conditioned soul in the material forest is sometimes swallowed by a python or crushed. At such a time, he is left lying in the forest like a dead person, devoid of consciousness and knowledge. Sometimes other poisonous snakes bite him. Being blind to his consciousness, he falls down into a dark well of hellish life with no hope of being rescued. Sometimes, in order to have a little significant sex enjoyment, one searches after a debauched woman. In this attempt, one is insulted and chastised by the woman's kinsman. This is like going to take honey from a beehive and being attacked by the bees. Sometimes, after spending lots of money, one may acquire another woman for some extra sense enjoyment. Unfortunately, the object of sense enjoyment, the woman, is taken away or kidnapped by another debauchee. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Nupur. Kameshwar Prabhu, would you like to read, please?
Yes, Madhavi. Hare Krishna. Sometimes the living entity is busy counteracting the natural disturbances of freezing cold, scorching heat, strong wind, excessive rainfall, and so forth. When he is unable to do so, he becomes very unhappy. Sometimes he is cheated in business transactions, one after another. In this way, by cheating, living entities create enmity among themselves. On the forest path of material existence, sometimes a person is without wealth and due to this does not have a proper home, bed, or sitting place, nor proper family enjoyment. He therefore goes to beg money from others, but when his desires are not fulfilled by begging, he wants to borrow or steal the property of others. Thus, he is insulted in society. Due to monetary transactions, relationships become very strained and end in enmity. Sometimes the husband and wife walk on the path of material progress, and to maintain their relationship, they work very hard. Sometimes, due to scarcity of money or due to diseased conditions, they are embraced and almost die. They are embarrassed and almost die. My dear king, on the forest path of material life, first a person is bereft of his father and mother, and after their death, he becomes attached to his newly born children. In this way, he wanders on the path of material progress and is eventually embarrassed. Nonetheless, no one knows how to get out of this, even up to the moment of death. There were and are many political and social heroes who have conquered enemies of equal power. Yet, due to their ignorance in believing that the land is theirs, they fight one another and lay down their lives in battle. They are not able to take up the spiritual path accepted by those in the renounced order. Although they are big heroes and political leaders, they cannot take to the path of spiritual realization. Sometimes the living entity in the forest of material existence takes shelter of creepers and desires to hear the chirping of the birds in those creepers. Being afraid of roaring lions in the forest, he makes friends with cranes, herons, and vultures. Being cheated by them, the living entity in the forest of the material world tries to give up the association of these so called yogis Swamis, and incarnations and come to the association of real devotees. But due to misfortune, he cannot follow the instructions of the spiritual master and advanced devotees. Therefore, he gives up their company and again returns to the association of monkeys who are simply interested in sense gratification and women. He derives satisfaction by associating with sense gratifiers and enjoying sex and intoxication. In this way, he spoils his life simply by indulging in sex and intoxication. Looking into the faces of other sense gratifiers, he becomes forgetful and thus approaches death. When the living entity becomes exactly like a monkey, jumping from one branch to another, he remains in the tree of household life without any profit but sex. But he is kicked by his wife just like the he ass, unable to gain release, he remains helplessly in that position. Sometimes he falls victim to an incurable disease, which is like falling into a mountain cave. He becomes afraid of death, which is like the elephant in the back of that cave, and he remains stranded, grasping at the twigs and branches of a creeper. O killer of enemies, Maharaja Rahūgaṇa, if a conditioned soul somehow or other goes out of his dangerous position, he again returns to his home to enjoy sex life, for that is the way of attachment. Thus, under the spell of the Lord's material energy, he continues to loiter in the forest of material existence. He does not discover his real interest even at the point of death. My dear King Rahugana, you are also a victim of the external energy being situated on the path of attraction to material pleasure. So that you may become an equal friend to all living entities. I now advise you to give up your kingly position and the rod by which you punished criminals. Give up attraction to the sense objects and take up the sword of knowledge sharpened by devotional service. Then you will be able to cut the hard knot of illusory energy and cross to the other side of the ocean of nescience. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Manjari Gopi, would you like to go next?
Yes, yes. King Rahugana said, this birth as a human being is the best of all. Even birth among the demigods in the heavenly planets is not as glorious as birth as a human being on this earth. What is the use of the exalted position of a demigod? In the heavenly planets, due to profuse material comforts, there is no possibility of associating with devotees. It is not at all wonderful that simply by being covered by the dust of your lotus feet, one immediately attains the platform of pure devotional service to Adhokshaj, which is not available even to the great demigods like Brahma. By associating with you just for a moment, I am now freed from all argument, false prestige, and lack of discrimination, which are the roots of entanglement in the material world. Now I'm free from all these problems. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the great personalities, whether they walk on the earth's surface as children, young boys, avadutas, or great brahmanas. Even if they are hidden under different guises, I offer my respects to all of them. By their mercy, may there be good fortune in the royal dynasties that are always offending them. Srila Shukdev Goswami continued, my dear king, O son of Mother Uttara, there were some waves of dissatisfaction in the mind of Jaḍa due to his being insulted by King Rahugana, who made him carry his palanquin. But Jaḍa neglected this, and his heart again became calm and quiet like an ocean.
Although King Rahūgaṇa had insulted him, he was a great Paramahams. Being a Vaishnava, he was naturally very kind-hearted, and he therefore told the king about the constitutional position of the soul. He then forgot the insult because King Rahūgaṇa pitifully begged pardon at his lotus feet. After this, he began to wander all over the world just as before. After After receiving lessons from the great devotee Jaḍa, King Rahūgaṇa of, of the state of Shauvir became completely aware of the constitutional position of the soul. He thus gave up the bodily conception completely. My dear king, whoever takes shelter of the servant of the Lord is certainly glorified because he can without difficulty give up the bodily conception. King Parikshit then told Shukadev Goswami, "My dear Lord, O great devotee sage, you are omniscient. You have very nicely described the position of the conditioned soul who is compared to a merchant in the forest. From these instructions, intelligent men can understand that the senses of a person in the bodily conception are like rogues and thieves in that forest, and one's wife and children are like jackals and other ferocious animals. However, it is not very easy for the unintelligent to understand the purport of this story because it is difficult to extricate the exact meaning from the allegory. I therefore request Your Holiness to give the direct meaning." Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Manu. Thank you, everyone. So, yeah, before we begin, I would like to take all of your permission and pray to the lotus feet of Vaishnavas and Guru Maharaj that I may speak in line, and please forgive my offenses that I may do while giving this little presentation. So we'll just start with the prayers. Om Ajnanaतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपं कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं सार्गजातां सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितंश्च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेशा गोपिकान्ता राधाकान्ता नमोऽस्तु ते तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठभूतले श्रीमति भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामी इति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पार्षदेष्टारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंदा हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा. We'll start with okay, I hope everyone can see my screen. So, yes, chapter 13 further talks between King Rahuguna and Jaḍa. So, basically, we'll just do a quick recap. And like Jagannath Gopal Prabhu said, this is our last chapter. So we'll just go a little back, like all the way since we started from the life of Rishabdev and how he gave the right values to his sons. And then we talked about Bharat Maharaj, who was a king and who renounced everything at his amazing wife, his everything, all the facilities, the beautiful kingdom he had. He renounced everything and went to the forest, and how he tried to save a deer who was just delivered by his mother. And then Bharat Maharaj was taking care of the deer, and during his final moments, because he was remembering that deer, he took both as a deer. And then, and after that, like we all know, his second birth was as a deer, but he remembered everything from his previous life. And he always tried to be in association of the devotees. And due to that remembrance, he was able to rectify that in his coming birth, which was as Shar Bharat, where he did as someone who, who doesn't know anything. He never, whatever he was asked to do, he did the other thing. And after his parents died, then even his stepbrothers, they removed it out of his home, out of their home and whatnot. And then we have further stories of how goddess Kali saved him from getting sacrificed and so on and so forth. But ultimately, then we reached the part where the where King Rahugana was going through the forest, and they all needed someone to carry his palanquin, and they asked Jarbharat because he was strong. But as we know, Jarbharat, being a realized soul, he did not differentiate between an ant and a king. For him, he did not want to cause inconvenience to either of them. And thus, he was stopping to make sure that no ants are killed. And then the king gets angry at him. And then Jarbharat, finally, he gives the right knowledge to the king. Although he was quiet throughout his life, but because he could see that the king was the right person to receive it, and he was in that correct mood, and he was also definitely spiritually elevated. Like I was listening to this class by Radha Maharaj, so the king wasn't like a typical materialist person. He was also very much spiritually developed, and thus he was the right person who could actually take that knowledge. And so this is the third chapter where we are actually continuing their discussion. The first chapter of the discussion that was beautifully led by Aishwarya Mataji, it had a lot of details about the mind. How can you make your mind your best friend? And how to kind of make sure you don't get deviated by all these different desires of the mind. And then the previous chapter, in that Prabhuji talked about that how Jarbhar was explaining the king the temporariness of this world and about the spiritual world, and at the end how he told him about his previous lives. So yeah, this was like a quick recap, and today we'll continue with further discussions on what are Jarbharat's instructions to the king. And in the previous chapter, we've ended where Jarbhat was telling King Rahugana about the importance of devotee association. And now let's see what we have in store for us. Okay. So basically, this chapter, most like the majority of this chapter has the allegorical story where there's this whole example of how this material world is a forest. It is a forest, and then you'll have different, like we all just read, there are these different comparisons like the snake, the jackal, then climbing the mountains and whatnot. So, all those things, or all those species or objects, they represent the different people or experiences and sufferings in this world. And the merchant who we are, or this soul is. So, the merchant is like someone gone to the forest to collect some goods and finally sell it. So, basically, the merchant's journey just shows a spirit soul's journey in this world who's trying to somehow make it through, just somehow trying to get happiness out of this world. But we all ultimately know that this world is a place of misery. So the initial goal itself is kind of misplaced. But we'll definitely see the allegory, and at the same time, at the end, we are going to see that what were Jarbharat's final instructions to the king, and the king expressing gratitude. So, although, yeah, this is the forest, but before we talk about the forest, although the whole chapter, we have a lot of comparisons and a lot of details, but I won't be going into every allegory, like every comparison. We'll be picking few that I was more inspired by, or I had something to discuss on. But besides that, we do have a, I mean, like we all know, I did take a lot of things from Bhagavad Subodhini. So Prabhuji has an amazing table with like side by side comparison. And also in this chapter 13, so basically, as we'll see later in the chapter, that in the last verse, Parikshit Maharaj, he requests Sukhdev ji that, the allegory was amazing and I could understand it, but there are a lot of people who might not be able to understand this. So, chapter 14 actually has the explanation of this allegory. So, how we'll be going is whatever explanations they are from Prabhupada's purport in chapter 13 plus chapter 14, so that we have these combined answers. So, yeah, that's how we'll be going through, and feel free to interrupt me or anything if you like. So, this is just a little image of the forest. There are all these different elements. If you can see, there's this person with a stick who's the merchant. And you have the lion, the jackals, creepers. I I can't see the mountains, but yeah, somewhere the mountains should be there. And yeah, so we'll see how and what comparisons are made and what can be learned from this. Okay, so let's start with the very beginning. First, let's talk about the merchant. So we know that the merchant enters the forest to acquire goods and to sell them for profit. So what does this exactly mean? So the idea is that the soul is into this enters this material world and just somehow tries to get some sort of happiness and is trying to find shelter. But what is happening throughout his journey is each time the soul goes to find some shelter, there is disappointment, or even if there is something that seemingly looks like happiness, ultimately it's either like very very fleeting, or it will end up giving them pain instead of happiness. So that's why a soul's journey in this world is not easy. And because we don't recognize our actual goal, we end up just taking this journey again and again. And at the time of death, whatever consciousness we have, we do take the next birth similar to whatever our consciousness was thinking of at that time. So that is our merchant and the forest. And then, so we know that the merchant has gone to the forest to get some money or whatever goods are available at the forest. But what happens? There are these now, if we get some money, we are supposed to use it in the right way, whether for whatever is required for our maintenance, and then in some Krishna conscious activities, helping the mission. But yeah, the soul might think that, but then what happens? There are these six plunderers who just plunder the misguided merchant and who actually misguide the merchant. So, any thoughts on who those plunderers can be? You can just unmute yourself or raise your hand.
The six anarthas?
Um, that's a good one, Prabhu. But any other answers?
The senses.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was Sundari. So, yes, the six senses. That's right. So, the six senses, like we know, that our senses are always misguided, like most of the time, they're misguiding them. I mean, ultimately, the whole reason that why we end up not doing the right thing and whatever we're trying to fight with our mind, etc., that is because of our senses. Something as simple as that because here we have the whole allegory of money, merchant, and whatnot. So we'll just talk into that same on the same lines. And what happens is, the senses may just misguide. It'll be like, okay, don't use your money here. And they might misguide us in so many other ways. So can you all give some examples you know, in the way our six senses can make us do the wrong thing? There's something in the chat. Overeat. Yeah. I mean, that's right, Lekha. This is something like senses can just literally take us for a toss, whether it's overeating, overspending, not while we're chanting, binge watching, um, not chanting early in the morning, sleeping extra. They're like so many things. So similarly, like these senses, how they trouble us, that same comparison is given to these six plunderers who are just plundering the man's wealth. Sorry, I need to see why my last. I think there's something wrong with my formatting. Yeah. Okay. And then we have the jackals and then a lot of other carnivorous animals that are compared to the family members of a miserly man who take away his wealth. So basically, what they're trying to say here is also how it's written. The purpose is when you have a family to take care, your spouse might want something, your kids might want something. So you're always like tied up in doing those things, and you really feel deprived of your spiritual determination because your entire energy goes into just maintaining and supporting people. Okay.
The reason you're unable to see the
Wow.
below part is
Mhm.
because your slide is a little, your is a
Okay.
little bit down. Like it's not,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
I could see that when you went out of the slideshow mode. You see
Okay.
that top gap?
Oh, yeah, right.
I think
That's
that
right.
is, yeah.
Can just fix it some. Okay, sorry about the technical difficulties. Yeah. Um, so yes, we did talk about the family members. Then actually lots and lots of examples throughout the chapters where we talk a lot about family and grastashram and how your spouse or kid can be a difficulty. So I would really like to open it up for discussion in just a few more slides. And yeah, then let's see how things turn. Then we are talking about these dense bowers. Bowers are just some sort of like green, grassy, shady area in the forest. And they're compared to the Grastashram, which is like a field of recreative activities. And we really enjoy being a part of an amazing family life and whatnot. But that desire, it's never satisfied. And it keeps coming again and again. And it's never enough. It's not like, okay, we have been there, done that, so we are just satisfied in it, and we decide that now I really need to detach a little bit and spend my time in doing more spiritual activities. But what happens is we are just tangled in that, and keep getting into it more and more. And then there are like other examples of mosquitoes which are in those bowers that are like the people who envy us or the thieves. Um, so yes, there are more examples like that. And like how we were talking about the Grihastashram, so they also mention an imaginary palace. So can someone tell me what is that imaginary palace? So it's mentioned in the verses that this merchant also sees some imaginary palaces in the forest, and then it dreams about having, getting to live in in those palaces. So what would that be? Okay, we have something in the chat. Yes.
Material. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, amazing material desires. Awesome. Um, yeah, but at the same time, it's imaginary. So we have one more answer in the chat. Yes, material achievements. Yeah, that's very close. Yeah, so as we can see, it's kind of similar to both. So it's basically the whole idea, like our whole idea of just enjoying in this amazing world and enjoying the different pleasures of life, eat, sleep, drink, be merry. So that whole idea, that is the whole imaginary palace that is seen by the merchant. Because like we all know, we may get these things, but they are very temporary. And at the same time, even after achieving those, you might not get that satisfaction. Like someone who's very rich, they would still want to get rich and just somehow earn more and more money. And even when they have money, they're scared to lose that money. And ultimately, if nothing happens, if everything goes correct, if everything is going well, then at the end of their lives, they are still going to lose those things because death is going to take everything away. So these things, they're so fleeting. The duration is so short that it is as good as imaginary. And then we have few more things. So eyes covered with by the dust of the whirlwind. What would that be? And also, if you would like to answer what the shadow river would be. So what would be the whirlwind that would cover your eyes? Okay, so we can actually go and see. So when we talk about okay, we do have one answer. Awesome. Directions from the path, distractions. Okay. Okay, that's nice, Lekha. So you say distraction is the whirlwind, but which distraction or which Maya? Awesome, amazing answers. Thank you all so much. So yes, you are very close. Very, very close. Such great answers, I'm sure. They're also one way to look at it. But here specifically, they are talking about the lust, which is also so basically in this whole chapter, the main theme, and in many places they are talking that sex life or lust is the main reason for all the misery because of the whole lust desire. We actually a man wants to have family, satisfy needs of everyone, and keep running after money, and feeding people around him, get richer. So the idea is we are blinded by lust, and because of that, we don't even see that their activities are observed by different demigods, as is written in the purports that different demigods they observe our activities, and that also ultimately decides that whatever karma we get. But what happens because we are covered by this lust, we literally forget that we are being seen, and we have to somehow will be held responsible for our karmas, and ultimately we end up committing more and more sinful activities. So, in short, when we are in covered by this dust of lust and we are in ignorance, then we end up committing even more and more things, such activities that will take us towards darkness further. And then the shallow river, it's actually there are two different comparisons. First is that what happens, he wants to jump into shallow river because it needs some shelter, like some nice cold water, and it's really scorching hot around around the merchant. So first is that they'll try in our real life when we need something, we'll try to go and ask for help to people, but we end up approaching those people who are either not charitable or they don't actually have anything to give us. And another thing is the shallow river is also compared to receiving cheap blessings from atheist or pseudo gurus. Um, so that is also something which is later discussed in much more detail in this chapter, that how even when the soul or when this merchant really wants to go and find someone for help, or when death is really getting closer, they do try to find people, but because it's so difficult to find the right guru in this world, that they end up following the wrong persons. And yeah, we also have this little comparison of the mosquitoes, which I think we already did. And yes, and then we also have he's suffering from a burning heat of a forest fire. So the household life is also compared to a forest fire in which you actually cannot find happiness. If you're in a forest fire, in a forest, the fire automatically happens due to dryness and frictions of the leaf. And I don't know much details on the scientific reasoning, but like we know it just somehow generates within the forest. You don't need an external factor. So the way either we talk about the household life or material life in general, it is like a forest fire which is really burning, but we are so innocent, or we can say ignorant, that we still keep trying to find more and more happiness in this forest fire. And but ultimately, like we see the next comparison, having the pleasure or comfort of a family life is as good as having a drop of water, like literally just a drop of water in the forest. First, because firstly, these things are like an imaginary city, like how it imaginary palace, like we discussed earlier. So they're going to end very soon, and at the same time, whatever happiness we get from them are not enough to overcome the miseries or the scorching heat of the strong material influences. So yeah, I mean, you all would be thinking that it's like so heavy, whatever we are reading. Like we all literally are a big family. We all have amazing spouses, parents, children, and whatnot, and we're reading something which is so strong. And that's we have seen that is how the theme has been since the last three chapters. That Bharat Maharaj being or Jar Bharat being the person he is, he's very cut short. He's very straightforward, and he is putting things the way they are. So now let's open it up for discussion. That how we as practicing devotees and of course householders, um, where our families are composed of amazing devotees, how do we understand this? And what learnings do we take from it? Are we able to take apply everything that is being told to us? So, yeah, any thoughts, any comments on that? Okay, let me see.
So yeah, these sections are very strong, and even not just this section, so many other section where householder life is, seemingly condemned, and all the pitfalls of householder life are mentioned in a very very poignant way, very very stark manner, and this it seems to be the case here as well. And the and but not only that, there are also sections in the Bhagavatam. I was actually trying to find when these analogies were being you were talking about these analogies. So Prabhupada has spoken very explicitly about an attached householder and a detached householder also. So so both the examples are there, both the the concepts are there, that there is a grihamedi and there is a grihastha. These concepts are there. Now of course it's a spectrum again. It's not that every householder is a grihamedi, and it's also not that every householder is a grihastha, right? And we are all on a particular level in terms of our practice in the householder life, and we are working from there. And like, if we were to isolate these instructions and take them and not holistically understand them, then it's like we will run into contradictions. Because for example, Prahlad Maharaj, he is condemning this attached grihamedi attached householder life very heavily in his instructions actually. But that, and this is a 5-year-old boy, and this same Prahlad Maharaj grows up, becomes the king, marries, has children, the children have children, grandchildren. So all these things are there. So then if we were to isolate these instructions and take them on their own, then we will run into many contradictions. And not only run into many contradictions, and we will run into certain impractical situations in life if we try to apply these things as they are. And that is the reason we need proper guidance to understand how to apply these principles. And in general, I think Shastra is to be taken in a holistic way. I'm not saying that we should always revel in an imagined kind of happiness, is it that everything is good, everything is nice. No, that is not the point. The point is to understand both these ends of the spectrum in a balanced way, and to apply as per the level at which we are. And that requires some kind of humility to understand where we are, some kind of discussion with our superiors, and so on. So just my some of my thoughts about this. I let the other Vaishnavas add.
Amazing, Prabhu. Thank you so much. That was so wonderful and so helpful. Thank you. Anyone else would like to add something? Okay, so we can proceed. Yeah, so as Jagannath Gopal Prabhu beautifully explained, I mean, that is literally it covered everything that how nicely he said that yes, they are even devotees like Prahlad Maharaj who do talk about being grahastha versus grahmedi, and then he also has a family life later. So the idea is to understand the difference and how everything is a spectrum, especially for us because we all are aspiring devotees. We all are learning. We are on this curve where we are trying to progress, and it's a journey full of ups and downs. So, one thing I wanted to add, and something I was thinking was, this is, I think last Saturday we were just discussing about this, that when Sankirtan Pro was telling, we were discussing about Kunti Maharani. So, it's ultimately about the consciousness. Like we all know, definitely Kunti Maharani, she is, she would be definitely someone who is doing the right thing in her spiritual life, and she whether it's in terms of detachment of family life or affection to Krishna. But she's also someone. So what happened? She first, when in her prayers, when Krishna was going back to Dwarka, she was thinking that, oh Krishna, please, if you go, then what will happen to my sons? But then she thought, but even the Vrishnis are my relatives, then what will happen to them? And then she realized, oh my God, this is like a never-ending circle. So then she prays to the Lord. Uh, so this is a translation for 1.8.41 of her prayers that she says, O Lord of the universe, soul of the universe, O personality of the form of universe, please therefore sever my tie of affection from my kinsmen, the Pandavas and the Vrishnis. So yes, she prays that, but we haven't, but of course we know even after that, she is with her kids, her sons, and she does have amazing relationship with everyone. So what does that mean? So the idea again comes to the level of to our consciousness. Like, are we serving our family members because we have this blood relation, or are we serving them because they are devotees of Krishna? And of course, like we were talking again, it can be a spectrum. And on different days, we might have different thoughts, but the idea is to always keep somehow reminding us that our children or our spouses or our parents, they are actually gifts of Krishna. It's a devotee given by Krishna in our care, and we have to take care of that devotee. And that reminds me of Srila Prabhupada's letter. It just came across my feed. I forgot to take a screenshot of it, so I don't have reference. But um, in in that letter, Prabhupada had written to one of the devotees that your your children are like your deities. You have to take care of them first, and if you're not taking care of your children and taking care of the deities, so you're doing something wrong. And where he mentioned that they are the Vaishnavas put into your care, so you have to make sure that this life is you take care of this life form that's given to you, and they end up becoming great Vaishnavas. So that is your duty. And this also reminds me of a little conversation between His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj and Nitya Mataji. I think she told us long back then that he told her that taking care of Radha Kripa is your service. So similarly, we really have to understand our consciousness behind it. And thank you, JGP and GKP for all these, yes, amazing references. So one says that child worship is more important than deity worship. Yes, if you cannot spend time with your child, then stop the duties of pujaris. These children are given to us by Krishna. They are Vaishnavas, and we must be very careful to protect them. These are not ordinary children; they are Vaikuntha children, and we are very fortunate we can give them chance to advance in Krishna consciousness. That is very great responsibility. Do not neglect or be confused. So yeah, I think this is so important because I ultimately we all, whether of course, we all are in our material or family lives, but we don't want to also get frustrated. We don't want to be like, oh my God, because of my kids or my spouse, I have to do this. No, we have to take that as a service, and that will just make everything more and more pleasant. And yeah, and then practical applications we already discussed, and then we'll again go to our more analogies. So the next one is that the merchant, they want to climb the mountains, but then there is his feet gets pricked by all these stone fragments and thorns and whatnot. So the comparison is to the conditioned soul who wants to be very happy in this material world and wants to have a nice family life, but ultimately there are like so and so many problems in the family lives which are similar to thorns and these stone fragments. And here, of course, this is a continuation of the previous things we've been reading. And but there's this little part of the purport that I liked. I mean, I really liked it because in that Prabhupada says that we are building the Krishna Balram temple that can be a place where everyone can live in this peaceful spiritual atmosphere. So this that just I really found it interesting that when Prabhupada was writing this purport, that time the temple was being built. So this is like just a little fun fact. I'm sure many of you might be knowing, but I didn't know. So yeah. And then Prabhupada says, I mean, in the purpose, it's written that one should voluntarily retire around the age of 50 and go to Vrindavan or forest. So ultimately, we're talking about the Vanprasthashram, and which leads us to our next question, which is again very similar to previous one, but we'll just narrow it down more to the idea of retirement or Vanprastha. Um, so yeah, how to again practically take Vanprastha, given our families and our financial stability and just the society around us, or is it even necessary? Or we can just reword this question: is that how would you define Vanprastha for a modern age devotee? Okay.
If no one wants to, if no one wants to go, I can say something. Um, this exact same question was asked to Radhanath Maharaj in Pune, in one of the Pune yatras, and yes, I found the nice. I found. Hold on, one sec. I'll just read out my notes. Oh no, this is not it. But basically, this question was asked to Maharaj that how do you take Vanaprastha in the modern world? Like, do we really go to a forest? Do we, what do we do? So Maharaj had mentioned, I'm paraphrasing what he mentioned. He said Vanaprastha is a mood, and the mood and the principle of Vanaprastha is that we slowly start reducing our engagement in the world per se, and we shift that engagement for Krishna slowly and steadily. So that reducing that is the principle of Vanaprastha. Now, how that principle applies in according to time, place, and circumstance has to be seen. So, yes, from a Vedic perspective, during the olden times, thousands and thousands of years ago, sure, going to the forest was the way to go. But today, that is not practical, and that is not going to kind of serve the purpose in one sense, because the seva that can happen in a temple, in the association of devotees, is much more impactful, much more nourishing for every jiva than somebody going to the forest and meditating. That is something that was possible for sages of the bygone ages, so to say. So yeah, that is what he said. Essentially, his point was that we have to see the principle, and we have to see how the principle applies in the modern world, and accordingly do it. And the principle is that yes, we should reduce our engagements in the world slowly, and dedicate more to Krishna consciousness.
Amazing, Prabhu. Such precious gems. Thank you so much for sharing, Prabhu. Um, yeah, actually, even I heard something very similar from Maharaj. I'll just share it in a moment. And Krishnan Prabhu, you've raised your hand. Would you like to go, please?
Yeah, Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
So Vanaprastha is, I loved Jagannath Prabhu's and Radhat Maharaj's explanation there and his guidance. Obviously we'll all reach the age of 50 or whatever was recommended for Vanaprastha. I've already reached it, I've crossed it, but I haven't stopped working. I still work right now. But the idea is to stop, not stop, but gradually reduce our dependence on society. And as Jagannath Prabhu mentioned, increasing our attention to the Lord, and also reducing our consumption. Stop accumulating things and start giving away things. Is probably another thing that we could start doing. And I can't remember now where it was, but it was some author who first visited Vrindavan, in the 70s, early 70s, and who saw a shopkeeper there in Vrindavan, and this shopkeeper, had a small son, and then he later, about a few about 30 years later, he visited Vrindavan again, and he went looking for this shopkeeper, and lo and behold, he found the same shopkeeper, and he was really surprised that the shopkeeper was still there, and he even saw a small child outside, and he thought, his time standing still. So he went to the shopkeeper and he asked him, "Oh, I saw you here about 30 years ago." Oh, he said, "Oh no, you must be mistaken. That must have been my father." So he pointed him to his father, and his father was also, he was in the courtyard of the shop, and his father tells him, "Oh yeah, I remember seeing you 30 years ago, and I've given my shop to my son. He manages it. Now I take care of my grandchildren. I do whatever work there is at home, whatever way I can be useful. I spend my time going to the temple, and that's how I lead my life." So this Western author, was saying how the Vanaprastha ashram is baked into Indian society, and or it used to be baked into Indian society until all this, modern way of living have come in. And so, yeah, I just thought I'll share that story. I can't remember now where I heard it, but I heard some author mentioning this. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing such a very nice and soothing story. And so much to learn from. Yeah, and like both of you said, so yes, I'll just read some nice thoughts on the chat. Yes, so Lekha says that Vanaprastha is a state of mind. Amazing. And then Gautama Prabhu has he's written, so practicing Vanprastha in the modern age doesn't necessarily mean leaving for the forest, but it does mean adopting its spirit, gradually detaching from household responsibilities and material entanglements while increasing focus on spiritual life. Practical ways: reduce career driven ambitions, shift work towards service oriented or simpler engagements, hand over household, financial, and decision making responsibilities to the next generation, move towards minimalism, favor possession. Sorry. Yep. Move towards minimalism, fewer possessions, simpler food, smaller living space, avoid unnecessary social obligations and sense gratification. Then Manjari Gopi has written practical ways is to create an inner forest, as in create mental and emotional space in daily life. We can't go to a forest or create a forest within. Wow, this is so beautiful. Such amazing thoughts. And yeah, like all of you are, how you all are focused on the fact that it's a state of mind. And of course, a lot of amazing practical applications at how we can reduce our consumption, be a minimalist. So great, great tips coming from everyone. Thank you so much. And then I'll go to this little part which is very similar to all of your answers that I heard in His Holiness Radha Swami Maharaj's class, which was on the same chapter, but verse number 26, if I'm not wrong. 23. Okay. Then so there Maharaj talks about it. So he was basically talking about sannyasis. And then he said that the idea is to have the spirit of sannyas. Even if the idea is not to like take sannyas and not do anything, but the idea is to just have that spirit, which means do everything in the spirit of devotion. And that is same for all ashrams, whether it's Vanprastha, sannyas, grahasthas, and at the same time following Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's four instructions to Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, which he did ask as a sannyasi, but which does apply to all of us as devotees. So, Grama Katha, like do not listen to mundane gossip, do not speak mundane topics, always keep the mind pure by remembering Krishna and always chanting the holy name. So we all know these four. But the idea is to be able to chant that holy name with purity. We need to first be like that by following the first three instructions. Yeah, and so yes, that was mostly about Vanaprastha ashram. And then we have just some few more, this little snippet. I really wanted to put this one because here it's written that whenever monetary transactions they get involved in whether relationships, business, or even country, then the result is not that good, which we can see in terms of the wars that we are seeing in the world today, whether it's an actual war or these tariff discussions and whatnot. We've at least witnessed three physical wars in the last two-ish or so years, and then some recent discussions. So this all the root cause of this is money. So yeah. And then, so now we are here. So we will skip lots of the allegories, and now we'll just come to the 14th verse, where we are talking about where the verse reads that, My dear king, on the forest path of material life, first a person is bereft of his father and mother, and after their death, he becomes attached to his newly born children. In this way, he wanders on the path of material progress and is eventually embarrassed. Nonetheless, no one knows how to get out of it, even up to the moment of death. So this verse, I'm really so basically what this verse says is that um once our father or anyone, they do all these things, like how we read material life, family life, take care of the family, do the right thing, whatever the society believes is right, and then even the next generation does that, the next generation, and the first generation will ask their children to, of course, study, to get the right degree, and live a certain way, and ultimately, but for what? So that they can tell their children to live the right way, and that right way is defined by the society. I remember, so there, so many jokes on social media when we were in college. It was like, when you're in class 10th, people say just pass 10th, then your life is fun. And in Hindi, if you'll be like, if we say they're like, oh, bas 10th pass kar lo, fir to mauje hai. Then just 12th pass kar lo, just pass 12, then your life is fun. And then just pass college, then your life is fun. Just get a job. And when you get a job, they're like, okay, now you suffer. So the idea is that the society has defined these normal things, and whatever we call it, the society, people, countries, whatever name we give them. So what is normal is to have a great job, earn money, be successful, you know, buy the right items, wear certain type of clothes, and that's it. And then teach your kids to do the same things, and the cycle continues. And bhakti, that is for old age. Um, especially especially in India, we do have this that, oh, bhakti is for the old age. At least in the West, there is this idea of people are like spiritual, they like to do, do yoga and all of that. But yeah, literally, this is, yeah, degree, naukri or chokri, absolutely. So yeah, it's like run, run, run. You have to do this. And but what is the solution? And see, so for us, of course, I won't ask you that, oh, is really bhakti for old age? Because I think we all are past that question. But I would love to ask you that how would you debate? Like maybe just a one word answer, or like, sorry, one liner, two liner, when anyone tells you bhakti is for old age, or like, oh, abhi to you are so young, why you are, you should, abhi tumhare khelne koodne ki umar hai. Then how would you answer to those questions? Saraswati, would you like to go, please?
So I had heard this, I don't know किससे, और बचपन में कि अगर आप भगवान को कोई फूल चढ़ाते हो, आप मुरझाया हुआ चढ़ाओगे या ताजा चढ़ाओगे? So the
हाँ,
same way we should do bhakti when we are young and energetic, not when we are old and like done with everything and have no energy, तब जाके भगवान के पास जा रहे हो. So that
Hari
would be.
bol, amazing.
Funny story. I gave the exact same answer what Saraswati gave to one of my dad's friends. So he asked me, "Arey, why did you start doing all this at this age?" This was when I just started in bhakti, very energetic, ready to answer all questions and whatnot. So then I told him, Uncle, when you have to offer a flower, what do you do? Do you offer a worn out flower or do you offer a fresh flower? Now the answer, although it made sort of theoretical sense, but then I indirectly ended up calling him a worn out flower. So that was later on I contemplated on it, and I felt that I don't know how he felt listening to that from me, like a kid who he saw me grow up from a baby, and then this guy is telling me that I'm a worn out flower, what to do, better to offer a better flower, better to do this in youth. But anyway, yeah, that is just something I wanted to. I would just tell them Prahlad Maharaj is a 5-year-old kid, Baba. Why do you think that this is something that needs to be done during old age? Shastras have examples of everyone, right? If you want to follow Indian culture, it is rooted in Shastra. So you go and see in the Shastra, when did people follow bhakti? They followed it in the prime of their life. It's not that they started at some, yes, sure, the externals of the mode in which they practiced may have changed as per time, but then the consciousness and the practices were always there, even in the prime of their life. Yeah, it's not something like an on off switch. Yeah, you're young, switch it off. When you become old, switch it on. It's not like that. So yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Such fun answers, both of you. Yeah, I really love those answers. And I honestly feel, yeah, even if someone even if we end up calling someone worn out flower, it's fine. They'll get over it. Sorry. Yeah, so Sankirtan Prabhu also had some inputs.
Yeah, for this question, I think I've heard it from in one of the Prabhupada lecture. So Prabhupada questions the definition of old age in itself. He says, "What is old age? Proximity to death. Can you guarantee that I'm not 5 minutes away or 1 second away from death?" So therefore, if we cannot tell our proximity to death, then maybe we all are old, and to this moment is the right time for bhakti.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, even I usually, whenever someone asks or talks about this, I'll just, how even Nitya Mataji posted on the chat, that I'll just ask that how are you sure you'll even be alive when you're old? So yeah, that's amazing. Thank you so much for the answers. Something what I had written, yeah. So the lion can roar anytime, because we're going to talk about the lion of death very soon. And so yeah, that can come anytime. And like you both gave this amazing analogy of a flower. So Krishna is not a runner-up, that he'll be like, okay, now I've enjoyed my senses, now my senses are weak, I'm old and frail, now I can do bhakti. No, Krishna is not like someone that whom you're giving your after all the options are exhausted, then you want to do Krishna bhakti. So no, I think we really, yeah, and Krishna Prabhu has written Kal Kare So Aaj Kar. Yes, because we never know when death will come. And the last one I've written is people are scared. So people are scared in the sense, I want to say that at the time of death, when the death is approaching, then they're scared of death. So that's why they end up doing bhakti at the old age, which is not correct. I mean, which is not correct to take up at the old age only. So yeah. So probably, how much time do we have? I think I have few more slides to go. I mean, it's already 10. Would you like me to?
You can go ahead for a couple of more minutes. It's an interesting discussion. So
Okay, Prabhu,
Yeah,
thank
please
you.
go ahead.
Thank you so much. So yeah, after this we have few more comparisons. Then we talk about that this merchant he takes shelter of creepers and desires to hear the chirping of the birds in these creepers. So it again means that the creepers are compared to their wife's arms and the sweet voice of the wife and material comfort. So the man really wants to do all of that. But what the man doesn't know is that there is a roaring lion in the forest. And when he's afraid of the roaring lion, so like how I think I gave up one answer that the roaring lion is death. So when you're afraid of death, then he makes friends with these cranes, herons, and vultures. But he's scared. So I wonder why he makes friends with these cranes, herons, and vultures. So doesn't even know who are these vultures. Okay, distractions, amazing. Um, but these vultures
Uh,
are sorry.
okay.
Okay.
You gave the answer.
Yeah, I gave the answer. Sorry. So, yeah, basically these vultures are so yeah, people they try to search for someone. They try to search for any person who can help them to navigate this upcoming death or to even somehow escape death, which is definitely not possible. But they end up taking associations or help from the the ones who claim to be God, atheists, the bogus guru, and whatnot. And even doc, yeah, even so Sanketan Prabhu say even doctors, up to a certain limit you can kind of delay things, but you cannot completely escape death. Um, and now there's this another whole thing of looking young, like they might be 60 or 70, but they want to look like they're 40. So that's another story. Um, but yeah, they take they take help of these different people who are not the right gurus for them. And like because we all recently saw the movie Narsimha, and in that there's this beautiful scene where Prahlad Maharaj's mother is kidnapped when she was pregnant, and then they show this comparison between a good guru and the misguiding person. So Hiranyakashipu's guru, I think Shukracharya, he was misguiding him to do the wrong things, and then Narad Muni, who was a guru of, means who guided Indradev as well as Prahlad Maharaj when he was in war. He gave the right instructions, and that's why we have an amazing devotee like Prahlad Maharaj and a demon like Hiranyakashipu. So it's so important to have the right guru and the right association. But now the question comes that how do we save ourselves from this line of death? And to just for the interest of time, the only way to save ourselves from the line of death is by surrendering to Hari. And because I really found it interesting because of the movie that we saw, now I'm like somehow more interested into all the Narsimha references. But but yeah, so I was listening to this class by Prabhupada Maharaj. So for the purport of this verse, Prabhupada has said that yes, taking shelter of Hari. And so there's this line that he uses. He said, Harim vina mrityam na taranti. So no one can be saved from the imminent danger of death without taking shelter of Hari. So here Hari is also used to refer to the lion of death because Hari also means lion, and also it is referred for Hari or the supreme lion or the I mean the supreme god. And in the class by Romapad Maharaj on this same verse, he had mentioned that Prabhupada, like Maharaj did a word search, and also 29 times Prabhupada has used this line, the Harim Vina Mritam Nataranti line in his lectures and in his purports. Okay, thank you, Nitya Mataji. Hare Krishna. Yes, so yes, and that's why. So there's this shelter of Maya versus shelter of Hari. So we have to be very, very careful whose shelter are we taking. And then again, shelter of Maya versus shelter of Hari. There are some practical examples in how to recognize. So I'll just to save some time, I'll keep going. And if you all want to like add something, please feel free to unmute and or just post on the chat. Yes, so practical examples. The first is shelter of Maya versus Hari is, of course, we know our dearest Prahlad Maharaj. We were discussing the other day that he could have easily been like I mean, he could have still continued his devotion and somehow just given some diplomatic answers to his fathers, and he would have lived a peaceful life. But that would be like taking mixed shelter of Hari. But he wanted to take complete shelter of Hari, so he was like out there, and he just told what is right. And so Srila Prabhupada also says that Hari also takes away all your attachments, like all the material attachments, as well as removes any obstacles. And as we know in Krishna Leela, the different demons, they represent different obstacles. So Krishna, he removes all those obstacles with his 1,000 hands. So Prabhupada has mentioned, as Ramapad Maharaj was saying, that with 1,000 hands, he removes these things. But because Krishna is such a loving God that he doesn't only take things, he gives you. But what will he give you with those 1,000 hands? That is Krishna Bhakti, that is ultimately going to give us. And then there are a few things on how we can recognize that whose shelter are we taking is by seeing if it takes us away from Krishna towards Krishna, trying to make sure, of course, again, it's a spectrum, but trying to make sure that it's not like a mixed shelter. Try to take as much shelter of Krishna as possible. And then um, of course, devotee, spiritual master, and engaging your mind, body, and soul in services and not fearing. Like as Krishna says that sarva dharman parityaga. So at the end, he says, do not fear. So when you take shelter, you should have that faith that if Krishna is giving me shelter, then his protection is 100% there. And now we are finished with our analogies. We'll quickly do the last part, which is Jarbhata's instructions and King Rahugana's gratitude. So then this is all the analogy that Jarbharat Maharaj gave. But what were his instructions ultimately? So he asked the kings to give up his kingly position and that rod by which he punishes criminals. And then with the sword of knowledge, sharpened by devotional, cut through the material attachments. And so this instruction, for this Srila Prabhupada has told in the purport that this is very similar to how Krishna says that the inverted tree that we have, which is the material world, how we must cut through this tree with determination and the weapon of detachment. So those were his instructions. And again, we have some action points which we can, you all can put in the chat or we can later discuss on the group. But yeah, but the idea is to somehow cross through this ocean of material existing through they have written detachment and determination, but ultimately to make it quicker and easy, of course, like we have been discussing, our only shelter is Krishna's lotus feet and taking the instruction of spiritual master, because honestly we won't know what this determination means or how to detach and what are the action points. So taking shelter and listen and following the instructions of our dear Guru Maharaj can help us to somehow cut through this tree. And then King Rahugana expresses his gratitude. He says that even demigods, even he doesn't desire birth in the higher planets because there he won't get devotee association. It is this birth in which he can get devotee association. So that is how important devotee association is. And he said, by the dust of the lotus feet of Bharat Maharaj, anyone can attain the platform of devotional service to Krishna. So this thing I really found very interesting on devotee association is that how to get association, what is association, and who is a devotee. So once we were in this little sangha, even Gautama Prabhu, I, and there were like few devotees from Bhakti Center. So we were talking about first how to get a devotee association is definitely through either sadhu or shastra. But then who is a devotee? And then it comes the whole topic of pure devotee and all these different discussions. But ultimately, we are not someone who gets to judge others that who is a pure devotee and who is not. So what we can do in this situation is that whenever we associate with devotees, instead of thinking how at what level someone is, what we can make sure is when a group of devotees are together, if they're discussing Krishna Katha, then that means you're getting the right devotee association. But if we end up discussing something which is not exactly Krishna Katha, then that is not getting association in the right way. So ultimately, how can we define devotee association is by coming together to discuss the topics of Krishna. So yeah, and then, and again, I'm like rushing really fast through it, but these are all also very interesting because Maharaj gave the lecture on this one, so I had a lot of points on this, but we can quickly skim through this. And then the last thing, or one of the last things, then Maharaj Rahūgaṇa is he is asking for forgiveness, not just from Bharat Maharaj, but from every devotee who might be in a guise of a small child, young boy, Avduta, Brahmin, anyone. He's asking for forgiveness from all of them because he said that the royal dynasty has offended them in many ways. So he's asking for forgiveness. But why? Why the royal dynasty has only done this? That is because the royal dynasty or people with any sort of opulence in general, they get very puffed up and they have a lot of prestige. So this prestige might appear as a very strong thing for a material person, but for a spiritual person, it makes you the weakest. And then Maya, it attacks us by feeding a desire for prestige. And so Maharaj was saying that in his lecture that as whenever Maya sees that you're growing spiritually, it will quickly attack you. It will give you more prestige, and then it will feed your that need for prestige. And then you're loving that prestige. And it might come up in any way. Like if I'm serving and then someone's praising my service, then I like that prestige. And then my my intention of services would change. So that's how Maya is attacking me. And so that is very important. So you have to be very, very careful. And that's why Bharat Maharaj used to go out of the way to not get honored by any devotee, anyone. So this desire for prestige or prestige can be really, really harmful for us. And we might end up offending. So why I've written these three things in quotes is that again, of course, we should not offend devotees, but at the same time, we really need to um, stop being the judge of who's a devotee, who's a new devotee, who's a non-devotee, and so on. Because Srila Prabhupada has said that we should not offend each other because we do not know who is whom. Um, and Maharaj also mentioned that Prabhupada has also said that the demigods, they stand in a queue to be able to take birth into a devotee's house. So if we see children, devotees' children, spouses, just like the four Kumaras, Jai Vijay couldn't recognize them. Even we might not be able to recognize someone. Like I might feel that, oh, she's a new girl. I don't even know, she's just learning Casey. I can just say anything to her. But no, we really don't want to end up offending anyone. And because we don't know. And even if someone, irrespective of anything, our idea is to be gentle towards every living soul, just how Bharat Maharaj was towards even ants. So that's very important for us. And how to protect ourselves from pride, how to not offend. Yeah, so that is like, so that's one. So how will we protect ourselves? So um, His Holiness Radha Maharaj said that ultimately Trinadapi is the safest place. It is not just an instruction to, of course, it's an instruction to follow, but why? Because it's the safest place. It is going to protect us from any offense and somehow getting lured by all the prestige. Because of course, as we do more and more, whether it's service or whether at office or because we all are growing, we are doing good things in our career, at home, otherwise. So that need to get recognized and that prestige can really, because honestly, like I can talk to you all a lot more on this in detail some other day, but I really saw myself sometimes, especially in the last few days, that I really like getting that importance, and then it's really harmful for us. So yeah, the safest place is when we are considering ourselves the servant of the servant. But one more thing, that we all are always surrounded by amazing souls because we are this amazing community of devotees. So how to not offend? And so Maharaj has said in his same lecture that you have to do your duties. Like if you have children, you have to teach them, but at the same time, um, you can't. You have to be very respectful towards them, not neglect their devotion. And same for any other relationships that we have around us, is to not neglect their devotions. But yeah, I would have loved to get like more thoughts on this, but because of my additional delays. I don't want to take up much of your time, but please feel free to let us know on the maybe WhatsApp chat that um, this is something I really would love to know, that because we're surrounded with so many amazing souls, how to protect ourselves from offending them, because we can't always be like too formal with people. So yeah, that is, I would really love to know. Um, okay, so Lekha has said it, one tip: wake up every day and think about two, three instructions from our Acharya as a guiding light for the rest of the day, and help us being cognizant of bouts of offenses that we can commit. Once committed, immediately apologize. Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much, Lekha. This was really nice, such nectar. Yeah, so this is just our last slide. So just to close the loop, then what happens after all the amazing instructions? King Rahugana thanks Bharat Maharaj, and then he gives up his bodily conception. And then also Jar Bharat, he was um, like a little upset with the way king behaved, but because Bharat Maharaj is a Vaishnava and he's a realized soul, so he forgave the king. And then Parikshit Maharaj also questions in the last verse of this chapter he requests Sukhdev Maharaj to kindly explain the actual, like the meaning of the allegory, which was further explained in chapter 14. So chapter 14 is all about the entire explanation, of which more or less we covered. But I would really, I mean, you all please feel free to check out Subodhini. They have like just the amazing table with everything. And then and so in chapter 14, to complete the pastimes of Bharat Maharaj, it was written that so following Bharat Maharaj's path is very difficult. Even kings cannot even imagine following his path, because following his path is like a crow or a bird wanting to follow the path of Garuda. But Garuda is the vehicle of Lord Vishnu, so that's not possible. And he gave up his beautiful wife, children, great friends at a very early age. Not during retirement, at the peak of his life, he did that. So, which is very difficult. And even as a deer, while leaving his body, he said prayers to Krishna, which was so, so beautiful. And then the last verse of chapter 14 talks about the Falastuti. I think it essentially talks about that whatever their desires are, whatever we want will get fulfilled, whether it's, spiritual or material. But of course, I'm sure in the purports, I didn't read the purport yet, but it would be written that what are the right desires to have. So yes, thank you so much. And I'll just read the last this thing by Lekha, is that if unable to apologize because they don't know that I have offended, I ask Krishna to yes, yes. So that was my question also, that many times if I just offend people in my mind, how do I like apologize? Because then that would be a real offense once I tell them I thought this about you and sorry for that. So, yes, amazing. Thank you everyone for your beautiful inputs. Sorry for uh going over the time, and also for running so much in the last few slides. But yeah, thank you so much. And I would love to know your thoughts on the devotee offense answers, maybe over chat or whenever you all like. Thank you so much, and forgive me for any offenses. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, ma, thank you so much. This was so beautiful, such practical, such thought provoking questions, and so relevant actually. Like, not far out questions about lofty topics. Very deep questions, but very real questions that we all often think about and we should be thinking about. So, a wonderful presentation, wonderful preparation, and wonderful delivery. Thank you so much, ma. And yeah, actually, I should have looked into these chapters more deeply, because when you asked me today whether you can cover some of the things from 14th chapter, I said okay, but then when you were doing everything like presenting the class, I could understand why you asked that, because these two chapters are very much connected. And but yeah, thank you so much, ma. Beautiful.
Thank you, Prabhu, for your kind words, and thanks for all the reflections. They actually made the class the class. Thank you so much.
So, anyone else, dear devotees? And if not, I have an announcement to make.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that it was an amazing class, Vrinda. The way you the way you prepared for this class and the amount of lectures that you heard and the way you made it interactive and asked all the relevant questions was spot on. So thank you for taking the time to prepare so nicely and deliver such a wonderful class. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Prabhu. It was all Maharaj's lectures. So thank you so much. Thanks to all of you. Hare Krishna.
Okay, thank you, dear devotee. So there is one announcement which is an exciting news for all of us, is that our dear Saraswati, who is currently, is she there in the on the call? Yeah, she's there with her names written in capitals, everything, all the characters.
And
Uh,
her sister is also here. So
yes, her sister Diya is also here. Hare Krishna, Diya.
Hare
And
Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. So the news is that she recently, I guess today, she got a job. She got an internship, a paid internship, and she was working very hard towards it. And yeah, many of you must have heard from her. She completed her associate's course very recently, and then she was looking for an internship or a job. So we are very happy that she got this job, and I'm waiting for when the party is going to be. And yeah, we hope and pray that she just soars higher and higher in her career and in her devotion towards the Lord. Very well.
congratulations, Saraswati. Would you like to unmute and share something so we can all, pray for you and yeah, please.
I mean, I don't have anything to say अभी तो.
Yeah, no, you're a big person. Why would you have anything to say?
कुछ भी प्रभु जी कुछ भी.
But किधर है internship? कब
Yeah.
चालू हो रहा है?
अच्छा, oh, okay, so you all can come and see me. That's why it is. So, कल शुरू हो रहा है. It's actually a classmate of mine works there, and she's stepping off her position. So she reached out to everyone. So it's like literally LinkedIn doesn't work, guys. It's literally just connections that helped me get this internship. So, it's like an hour away. It's in Manhattan, and yeah, it's good. At least like I'll be surrounded by fabrics, so I'm happy.
Amazing. So 1 hour commute one way.
Yeah, 1 hour commute, and it's like 9:30 to 6:30. तो ऐसा पूरा दिन जाएगा. But then it's just 3 times a week. So I'm
Oh
happy.
wow.
Manjari Gopi is asking the name of the company.
It's Fine Linens. Okay.
Fine linens. Okay.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Cool. So I'll wait for the party venue, time, date, etc. So
वो आपके लिए नहीं है, but आपके मम्मा और घर वालों के लिए. Just a women's party, so I'm sorry. Like, we're gonna party tomorrow.
अच्छा, मतलब हम भी हैं.
आप हो. वीकेंड की तो अभी
और
वो
हम
तो इधर नहीं है, so no.
और हम
Boo!
I'm sorry. Only girls and Jersey City people are invited tomorrow.
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, and sure, yeah, again, I mean, congrats, Saraswati, and we'll decide who comes to the party tomorrow. Um,
Yes, definitely.
so yes, so another announcement is next Tuesday. So since we completed the Jaḍa Bharat section, so since for the next 2 Tuesdays, we are going to be graced by Gaur Kumar Prabhu's 2-part series, and I'll put more details about it. But this is just like I wanted to let you all know so that you guys can plan accordingly. So next 2 Tuesdays, we are going to. I mean, Gaur Kumar Prabhu is going to discuss a very interesting topic with us, and which will be also like a preparation of consciousness for the new Vrindavan Yatra that's coming up at the end of this month. So yeah, that's all in terms of the announcements, unless I'm missing something, Gaur Kumar Prabhu.
No, Prabhu. Thank you.
So yeah, so that's it, dear devotees. Thank you for joining. Have a good night, and we'll see you all on Janmashtami or next Tuesday. Hare Krishna. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyev च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः. अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय. श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय. हर ग्रेस वृंदा गोपी माता जी की जय.
Jai.